Well, good morning, everybody. Today I wanted to go over a few of the tips that I did last year, get a little refresher before the season starts in, and for things that you need to look for or think about. And it's always good. The season's pretty close here to for us to get out. The snow's starting to um, melt. The streams are running a little bit high and they're very cold, so you don't really want to get into those. But where I like to rock hound is up higher, so hopefully pretty soon we can get in there. Um, but this is I made a list of took some notes of things to look for while you're out there. And the first thing is look for agates where agates have been found before, or just material in general. I mean, there's a lot of sites and books, um, areas that sometimes you might think that there's really nothing there left, but if you go look in the surrounding area, you might find another deposit of that same material or even some different material. Um, but that's a good tip is look where stuff has been found before. Okay, now this next thing that I have on my list is culverts. I did a thing about culverts, and the thing about culverts is it changes the dynamic of the stream. For thousands of years, the stream had been running, and all that material went on down, because there was no culvert there. But a culvert, what it does, it kind of backs up the stream right at that location. So it's always good to look upstream from a culvert. And you might look at it in the summertime and you'll think, well, everything just goes right through the culvert. Well, that's not the case, because all that water gets backed up. Especially if it's a really good flood, the culvert might not be able to handle all the water, and it'll back up around the culvert, and what that causes is a pool. And as soon as you get a pool of water, you start to get places where there's where the rock will fall out before it ever gets to the culvert. My rule of thumb usually is 30 to 50 feet above a culvert is where I'm probably going to find some material. Because if there's a big pool there, that heavier material will drop out before it gets to the culvert. Usually most of the stuff that goes through a culvert is light stuff, because it'll get sucked right down there, but heavy stuff, it takes a really good flow to get heavy stuff to move. And when they put in a culvert, you have where they put all the tailings from that culvert. They'll put it on the side of the road on the downhill side, and if you can figure out where that's at, look in that area, because the last stuff they put on that somebody wants to get a hold of me. But the last stuff they put on that tailing pile will be the heaviest, and it's the deepest down, so it'll tell you if there's anything really in that stream that might have sunk out. But that's what and then they'll, after they get done backfilling the culvert, whatever's left, the bulldozer will spread out. So you got to look from right by the culvert back 50 to 100 feet, and check that ditch, and up on the sides too, because things will get pushed up, because things go to the least resistance, and the edge of that blade is where the least resistance is. So, and that's a good indicator of what you might find. Now, here's one here is the slope of a mountain stream. Now, say your stream has got a slope like this, but then it'll flatten out. You might find something where it flattens out, but most generally, if I do find something where it's flattened out, it's real small. because it has to be light enough to stay on top of, the gravel beds. But where it gets sloped, that stuff will stay closer to the surface and you'll be more likely to find it. So like here, there's streams here and they're flowing. This is all flat and everything will sink out because there's just probably 100 feet of glacial till below me. And where you get up closer to the mountains, though, the hard rock is closer to the surface, so that material doesn't have has a harder time sinking out. So you do better on a slope. But if you get into a slope like this, it just drops out. So you want, just a good incline. And here's another thing about streams is that I figure maybe 10% of the material that you find in a stream is what's in the mountains. You're only finding 10% of what's really back in there, because a lot of the material just doesn't make it to the stream. Even here where, we're in a rainforest, and I mean it rains, right up here in the mountains, it gets about 100 inches a year. And that still isn't enough to get all that material. Forrest and I, we were up on a stream. There was nothing in the stream, but about 20 to 30 feet away from that stream, we found all sorts of jasper. But very little, if any, was in the stream. And it was just because of that slope, because the slope was about like this. After it came down the hill, it just didn't have enough momentum to get to that stream. And I found that to be true in many places, that we've found that there's good material, but it just doesn't make it to the stream. You go down the stream and they're just barren. And so don't always think that, the stream's going to tell you what's about everything that's in there. The stuff that makes it there is, either is dropping right in, or there's a stream coming into it that's got a pretty good flow. So think about that, is if you got a major stream and it has good material in it, it's letting you know that there's a lot more back up in the mountains that hasn't been found. So keep your eyes open on that. Now here's one that I've known about, but I haven't really put it too much into practice until recently. And it's about extinct volcanoes. I think I mentioned something before about you got to be a certain amount of distance from them, and that's what the old timers, especially the gold prospectors, went by. And so I've put it into practice, but I don't go all the way out. I just like that. They say about 1 mile from where an extinct volcano, from the throat of it, if you get about 1 mile away from the old mountain, you'll start finding stuff. And last year we did that and found out it was pretty accurate. We found some really good stuff about 1 mile away from an old extinct blasted out volcano. And the thing about Washington State, there's a lot of extinct volcanoes, but most of them are in wilderness area and in the park. Now I'm not talking about, Rainier, St. Helens, the active ones. I'm talking about old ones that are extinct. And those are the ones you want to look for and get back away from them, a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, right in that area, and start looking, and you'll do okay in there. That's for vein agate. You'll find vein jasper, vein agate. Now, if you're just looking for nodules, those could be in lava flows, and those could be almost anywhere. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about veins. Okay, and then when you find a vein, you know, once if you find one and it's going in a certain direction, you know, look off to the sides if you can, if it's, you know, if you're able to. And veins usually run in parallels, you know, anywhere from just a few feet to out to about 20 feet. There might be another vein, might not be as big, could be bigger, but it's running parallel. I mean, yeah, you're going to find some stringers that come off of it that aren't, you know, might be going diagonal, but most generally a vein you'll find another one or two or how many. I mean, we were up on a hillside here a while back, probably a couple years ago, and there was just vein after vein. I don't even know how many, but they were all running parallel to each other all across this hillside. So that's something to think about. And when you're following a vein, you know, just because the color you see right where you're standing doesn't mean that it's going to be the same color, um, you know, 10 feet away, even a couple feet away. It can change color. So don't be discouraged if you're looking at a vein and it's just like, this isn't what I'm looking for, or it's almost what I'm looking for. Follow it up or down, and that color could change. So, and the vein that's next to it might even be a different color. And like I said, where that one there, where there was veins all across there, I mean, it runs the gamut of color. It goes from white to black, you know, and everything in between. And some of those colors are all in the same vein. So, um, yeah, take a look at everything. Um, okay, here's one here. Hunting beaches. Like here, we've got the Hood Canal. And depending on where you're at on the Hood Canal, it could be glacial till, or it may have come out of the mountains. And that depends on what side of the canal you're on. Say this is the canal here, say the mountains are on this side, and this side here is one of those hills that's nothing but glacial till. Now, anything on this side could be glacial till, but it could have came out of the mountains. Anything on this side, more than likely glacial till. So I know, especially around here, we find something out in here, we're pretty quick to say it's glacial till, but that might not be the case. If you're on a beach and there's a stream somewhere nearby, you know, you may look at the stream, but like I said, when streams go across flats, they, you know, everything tends to sink out. But water can be very powerful, and it can kick something up down the beach a ways, and it may have come from the mountains. So if you find something on a beach and you're wondering, well, it's glacial till, I mean, if you determine that, you don't have to do anything else besides go home. But in my case, I would go up a stream, the nearest stream, and check it out, because, and I wouldn't just check out, you know, just a little bit of it. I'd go up to where I got to a mountain or something and checked up in there. And you might find that there's more of it up there, that most of it just doesn't make it out to the beaches. So, now river movements. This is the thing, you get a meandering river, and I've went over this before. There might be a stream that had been depositing material into a major river, but the river had moved. You know, they'll go back and forth, and, you know, from time to time it will pick that material back up, then nothing will get into the river. But if there's a big flat in there, you know, a lot of gravel bar, and there's a stream coming off there, you got to get up to where it comes down off the hill and check there, because that might be where the material's coming from. Because if you went up all the other streams that are coming in there and there isn't nothing, and you have you know, and you're pretty close to the hillside, then it's more than likely it could have been the river's moved away from the source of the stream that's putting the material in there. So that's always something good to check out. And here's one that I've got on to people about is tunnel vision. Don't get tunnel vision when you're out there. I mean, there's so many people, like my old rockhounding partner, all he ever wanted to do was hunt Ellensburg blues. That was it. I mean, I've hunted blues so much, I'm sick of it. People ask me if I want to go, and I don't, you know. And in that same area out there, there is so much more stuff, but people won't look at it because they're looking for a blue. And it's disheartening, you know, because they could be actually getting some material that they could take home and work, but you know, that lure of getting the blue, it's almost like gold fever. And I've seen so many people get it, but you know, there's just so much more stuff out there. I've been out all through there, and there's different geodes. There's jasper veins, there's agate veins, just so much other stuff. You know, just don't get focused on one stuff, on one thing. You know that there's other stuff out there. I mean, just recently, yesterday I was talking to a guy, and I was telling him that we'd been rockhounding in a certain area, and he said he had been hunting in that area, and he was finding big pyrite cubes, and that was something I never thought about out in there. But now I'm going to go look for that also. But there's just so many things to go look for, because if there's some volcanic active or geological, you know, stuff going on, all sorts of things can be found. So, well, I think I kind of covered everything I wrote down here. Hopefully it helps you, and hope you have a good season. And for you new people out there, you know, follow some of these tips, and it may get you into an area, you know, that nobody's ever hunted before. Well, I hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something, and I hope you get out there and do some good rock hounding. Thank you for watching.